want to do a transaction, you're going on Amazon to do research on something to buy. That's that's all possible because of the data where the data that's stored in a database, right? So when we talk about databases, it's real life. All of us get to, in some way, shape, or form, deal with data and databases very frequently. All right. And that's the value, that's really what a database is about. And it's so important, right? Because there is, like I just mentioned, data is at the highest premium than it has ever been in the history of the world, right? Where there's a data deluge, we're in a digital age, we're experiencing massive amounts of data being generated regularly, right? Organizations of all sizes collect and store data. Think about it. Every time you go online to do a purchase, has this happened to you where you go, let's say you're trying to buy a shoe, you go on Google and you search shoes, black shoe for wedding. And then it seems like every other promotion you see is about shoes. It's like somebody saw what you did and they've decided they are going to overwhelm you with information about shoes because that's really how the world works. It's everything we're doing, every behavior we exhibit online, it's captured somehow and stored. You always see this option to enable cookies when you go on a website. What does that really mean? It means you're giving that website or that page permission to track your behavior on the site. That behavior is stored in a database somewhere. And now I know that, okay, this person has specific interests. And so I'm going to try to market to them, right, based on their interests. And so that's really like businesses live and depend on data. Regardless of what they do, regardless of what the industry is, at the core of every business is data. Any business you can think about, it's driven by data. Think of the medical industry, hospitals. Yes, it's healthcare services they provide, but they depend on data to effectively do their work, whether it's through patient records, right? Doctors can efficiently know, okay, this is your medical history and this is what you've tried. In fact, if you notice when you go for whether it's medical checks or, treatment or whatever it is, you always get this, they always ask you for symptoms and then they're imputing all of those symptoms into a system. And based on the outcomes, that's where the diagnosis comes from. That's why you see doctors can see 3, 4 times more patients today than they would like a few years ago, because now it's all automated through, back end systems, electronic medical records. All of this it's almost like you have a doctor on demand that they are using, right? So it's incredible how much technology has advanced and how dependent we're on data. So data is in everything we do. Now, today's topic is focused on SQL for database administrator. So now that we've established what a database is, right? Who is a database administrator? When we talk about database administrators, we're talking about the guardians of the data, right? The protectors of information. I just explained now that businesses are reliant on their data. That means somebody has to be responsible for making sure that only the right people have access to that database, and not just have access, but have access to the right information. For example, let's say I use Bank of America as, I bank with Bank of America. That makes me a legitimate user, right? I'm an account holder. I can go I have access legally to access information from Bank of America. But what I have access to is my bank statements. It's my stuff, right? I'm not able to, even if you are using the same bank as I do, I can't see your balance. I don't have access to your information that you used to open your account, right? Measures are put in place by database engineers database administrators to ensure that the level of access you have is dependent on your role. It's dependent on, what you are in that space as. Right? Database administrators ensure data is safe, it's secure. Copies are made and saved, offline to ensure that there are no, in case of a disaster, in case of, an outage, we have we have the information we need installed. We're not losing data. That's who we are as database administrators. We're managing access. We're managing performance. Right? You go on Amazon, you do a search for a product, and in fraction of seconds, you have 1,000 options of the same thing. You go on Google and you do a search. Even though that search is querying like a massive data set, right? Imagine how much volume of information Google has access to. Yes, I type in a request, and in fraction of seconds, I get 1,000 different options in in that kind of speed. So that's the power of that performance ability to quickly find stuff is possible because of database administrators. We are behind the scenes putting things in place to ensure that people have access to information. And again, it's about access to information and the speed of access to information, right? Making sure that even in times of catastrophe and disaster, the data is protected. Right. So that's who we are. We are guardians of the data. We ensure, access data is accessible. It's accessible in an efficient manner, right? And people have access to what they need. Right. We make sure that the quality of data is accurate per se. So that's the line. That's what database administrators do. Now, how are we able to do this? That is where we start going into platforms, right? We use specific tools and platforms to manage business critical data for businesses, right? We're not, this data we're talking about is not abstractly, it doesn't exist in the abstract. It needs to be connected to somehow, right? And then all of the manipulation we're talking about and configuring access, all of that is done through platforms, right? These platforms are things we call relational database systems. They can be relational, they can be non-relational, but these database management platforms help you with all of the things I talked about that database administrators do, right? And you can see a list of them on the screen. If you can see my screen, it's Oracle, is Microsoft SQL Server, is MySQL, is PostgreSQL. You see that the SQL is a recurring theme in most of them. All of them have really SQL, again, like I said, is a standard when it comes to the language of data. All of the things listed, you might be familiar with some of them, you might not, but these are all database management platforms. They have specific, abilities, and that's why there's a handful of them. But in the end, if you are going to become a database engineer, a database administrator, you have to be proficient at one of those tools because you're going to be using Microsoft SQL Server to help businesses with managing their data, right? You're using these platforms and these tools to help with data management or database administration or just managing access, all of that good stuff. So these platforms, most of them, underline is SQL. SQL is the language they speak. That is how they are able to, that's the language the data understands. And these platforms use SQL to manipulate, manage, and administer data. Right. So again, my core area that we focus on at Extra Technologies, we're primarily focused on Microsoft SQL. Again, there are multiple platforms, but that's our area of expertise. So I'm going to talk about SQL or SQL from that perspective. Right. So again, today we're talking about SQL for database administration, just going through the foundations of it. And I've described who a database administrator is, right, and what they do. They are the guardians of the data. They ensure that databases are secure, efficient, and accessible. Access is key, and strong SQL skills are essential for database administrators. Let's talk about SQL a little bit. What is SQL? SQL is an acronym. It is not, we tend to pronounce SQL as SQL. People will call it SQL like a movie sequel. SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and that's really it. It's the standard language for accessing and manipulating databases. Like I said, it's the language data understands, and it allows you to interact with databases to retrieve, insert, update, and delete data. It's able to do all aspects of data manipulation. You have these commands you can use to get the data to behave a certain way, right? While learning SQL really quickly, again, it's essential for anyone pursuing a career in database administration. Not just database administration, most data-related career paths, because this is a language of data, there is some SQL component to it. There's always a SQL component to know. In fact, I was speaking to one of my mentors earlier when I first started. I was talking to him a couple of days ago. And like now, just make sure you're telling your students they need to learn SQL. They need to be very good with T-SQL because that's the language. That's how you manipulate the data directly. That's the language the database engine at the back end understands. Right? All of the oracles, the SQL servers, the Redshift, Snowflakes, any platform you name, behind the scenes, what's driving it? SQL. All right, so it's a foundation for managing data in modern systems. Um, it's and then it helps, understanding SQL opens doors to various tech roles, like I said, not just database administration, but even most other roles in the data space need some component of SQL, whether you're a data analyst or BI, BI person, ETL developers, whatever career path you choose in the data realm, SQL proficiency is non-negotiable. All right, we'll look at some of the components of SQL. Key components of SQL, we have DML. That stands for Data Manipulation Language. And I'm going to kind of spend some time on each of them. We have DDL, that stands for Data Definition Language. And then the DCL stands for the Data Control Language. It's about access. So with DML, the focus is on the data itself. It's about you engaging. It's commands that speak to the data directly. Right, you see the commands inside the DML box: insert, update, delete, then select to retrieve records. That's what DML is about. It's about the data. Every command under the DML umbrella is speaking to the data directly, not necessarily the object or the structure that holds the data, but the data itself. Right. So we have a few commands that we're familiar with. If you've done any research around, you'll be familiar with select. And if you've not done it for that, it's the same. It doesn't matter. A select is commands to a table in a database to retrieve records from a database. So for example, real world application, when you sign into your Amazon account. I'll keep using Amazon because that's the one that's coming to my head. When you go to Amazon and you search for black wedding shoes, and you get a list of shoes or a list of Amazon retailers stores showing you black shoes. You typed in a request, but what happens is the front end of Amazon took your request and processed that through like a back end and sent a query. That query is a select statement, right? It took your request and sent a select instruction to the back end database for Amazon, where it's looking for, it begins to mix and match based on your request and says, hey, provide me a list of all the black shoes for weddings. And then suddenly you have a list in front of you. So you are retrieving records from a table, from the database. Whenever you are retrieving records, you go in and you do a search and you get something back. That is select. That's what a select statement does. It's about requesting and getting something back. This is the real definition of a query. It's calling for something and getting information back. That is your select statement. And again, that falls under the DML. The next one we have insert. The insert is to add new records to a table, right? You want to add a new record to the table. Let's say you're an employer, you have a new employee, and you need to add their record to the employees table, to the employee database. You will use the insert command to get that done. Right, so insert is to add new records. Maybe you're listing a new product in your Amazon store. What you are doing is you are writing, again, in the front end, you're probably just typing in words and imputing information into a form. But at the back end, what's happening is the instructions you are sending is converted to SQL and sent to the database engine, and it knows to, okay, take this information and update the records or, add this new record to this table. And I hope all of this is making sense. So that's insert. The next, you have the update. Update is to modify or change existing records, right? For example, somebody does a change of name at a job and they need to update their records with, HR, right? To reflect their new information, right? Somebody gets married and takes on maybe the husband's last name. Okay, so that's you want all of your records in your place of work or important places to reflect your new name, right? So that's update. You're not adding anything new, you're not retrieving, you're just changing what's already there. And then the last one is delete. Needs no introduction. Delete means delete. It means getting rid of records. Very dangerous command. You want to be careful when it delete, because you might not be able to reverse. It's not like a control Z um, situation, right? So one of the things we teach, and I teach in class, is make sure you've covered all your bases. Make sure you have a backup, you have a rollback plan before you do a delete operation in production, right? A delete means you're getting rid of records. Do I really want to do this, or do I want to archive it and save it somewhere and make sure everything is good before I finally do a final delete? So there's always some conversation to go, because again, it's easy to tear down. You want to make sure that there are no negative consequences before you do a delete operation. So that's under the DML. So we have the select that helps us with retrieving records from a table. It's what we call a query. Insert is to add new records to a table. Update is to change the existing records, and delete is to remove records. All right, so that is DML. The next component we talked about is the DDL. Data definition language. Data definition language, like I said, this one is command to the structures, right? Database structure. So whether it's a login, right? It's instructions to that object, instructions to a structure, not to the data itself. The DDL commands speak to the object or the structure, not to the data. DML speaks to the data, retrieve records, insert new records. That's DML. DDL talks to the object. Oh, create a new database. That's an object. Create a new table, right? Add a new column to a table. Create a new login. Whatever the instruction is, DDL is about the object, not the data, not the data itself. All right. So under DDL, we have the creative, creating the create command. I'll call it create. I use create table as an example, but create just means bring a new object into existence. Right? Bring a new object into existence. That's it. Point blank period. Whether you're creating a login, you can create a table, you can create a database, you can create different objects within the database infrastructure. So again, it's a DDL command. Again, today I'm trying to introduce SQL. Of course, it gets deeper, the things you can create and how you can use these terminologies. My goal today is really to get us familiar with them, so that you have an idea. If you're having a conversation, these things are no longer new to you. All right, so DDL, the next one is alter. Create table, the next one is alter. Alter is, again, you're changing an existing structure. Again, I'm using the table as an example, but alter is the command. So you can alter a database, you can add a new file, you can change the structure of a table, you can change the permissions on the login. Alter just means you are changing an existing structure, right? Same way we can alter our clothes. It's still the same shirt. You just adjusted it, down because you lost some weight. So that's alter is just changing an existing structure. And then the last one is drop. Drop is more like delete, but now it's not the data, it's the object. So in SQL, we don't use delete a table or delete a database. That's not our language. We say drop a database, drop a table, drop a user, drop a login, right? Drop that view. So drop is the equivalent of a delete command. What drop is to objects is what delete is to the data. All right, and then the last component is the data control language. Data control language, DCL, this is focused around granting and revoking permissions. It's about access, managing permissions, managing roles and responsibilities for individual accounts. So under the DCL, we have grants, which is to assign permissions, and we have revoke, which is to remove permissions. Point blank period. Very simple, right? So it's about grants and revoke. That's it. It's not a lot of moving parts, but that's how the DCL. So we've looked at the the three core aspects or components of SQL. DML, that's data manipulation language. DDL, which is data definition language, and DCL, which is data control language. DML is talking to the data directly. You're manipulating your Manipulating sounds strong, but because it's in the word, we can use it. It's in the name, we can use it. But it's about really sending instructions to the data itself, right? With the DDL, it's about the object, it's about the structure. And with the DCL, it's about permissions, your abilities, right? What are you able to do? So grant access to do something or revoke ability to do something. All right, so we'll look at some real life applications of SQL, and I've kind of talked through some of it. I just have a list here just for record purposes. We have inventory management softwares, for tracking products, quantity, suppliers. Front end is going to be an application, an interface where people, nice UI where people can go in, write, and type stuff. But at the back end for most of these inventory management tools and platforms, it's SQL at the back end. Data is going into a database, and that's where we can, do what we do from the database perspective. So just some examples, we have our, sales analytics platforms to analyze customer behavior and sales trends, employee records. Companies use different platforms, whether it's for task management, CRM platforms, different things, right? It's about how do we get how do we get the most how do we get access to our data and get access quickly. So that's some of the things, some of the real life applications. I talked about medical applications, your electronic medical records, retail, just your retail platforms, whether it's a Walmart, Amazon, or the smaller platforms, even social media platforms. These are all at the back end is data that they are talking to. Um, all right, I have some additional real life applications. We have web development, which again, the most dynamic websites are constantly pulling from a back end database, right? There are websites that are static. So they're just informational, they're not retrieving, or you just go on there, the information is static. Somebody can go update it from time to time, but it's not pulling, data is not being updated on a regular basis. It's a static website. We have dynamic websites where there's real time things are changing. So you can go in and see reports. Your social media platforms, for example, it's constantly refreshing the feed and it's updating because new information is being fed. So it's not static information. That's a dynamic website. For dynamic websites, they need to have access to a data source, right? And that's where your databases come from the back end. Other real life application, we use authentication, when we go in and sign in into platforms we own, platforms that we, maybe somebody gives us access to their credentials. User authentication, verifying user credentials. These are some ways, some real life applications for, databases. We have business applications. All right, so we have, before I get into career opportunities, make sure there we go. All right, so web development. So let's look at, again, we'll get into career opportunities in database administration. There's quite a few of them. First one, our favorite one, database administrators. Like I talked about earlier, our job is to manage databases, make sure performance is optimal and ensure data security is about security, access. I kind of spent some time there earlier, so I won't dwell on that. The next one is data analyst, right? You can, again, these are SQL opportunities. If you know SQL, you can transition into any of those roles. Data analysts they are more like, well, they're analyzing the data, so they have access to information, but they are looking at what is this data telling us, right? So you can see predictions. You see people predicting where, how election outcomes will be based on data available to them, based on polls, all of that. You see businesses making decisions on marketing and promotion based on data they have available to them, based on, hey, we have access to who is buying our products, right? Which demographics appreciate what this product represents. And based on that, well, if I know this demographic is the one that is inclined to spend money on my product, I will spend time marketing to them. Versus in these demographics, I made zero sales here. So no need to invest marketing dollars there because I know that's something that is not something of interest to them. All right. So that's for data analysis. Um, there's different other career paths. I mentioned ETL developers. Uh, there's software engineers. There's different different career paths. BI, ETL, data warehousing. So if you hit up LinkedIn, you see jobs for for Snowflake and Redshift, Amazon Redshift, Aurora, PLS. Like it's some level of development type work. Where you are going beyond the database, but again, SQL is the common factor. All right. So there is when it comes to again, database administration, there's a ton of opportunity. Um, it's one of those fields where one of the things that is mind-boggling is when people think about getting into tech, database administration is not necessarily the first thing that comes. In fact, I almost feel like data analysis is more popular, and maybe because it's been promoted to be non-code, right? Data analysis is more analytical, so I can analyze stuff, I should be fine, which is correct. You're looking at data and trying to draw patterns from that. Um, but when it comes to just full scale, you're working on data, whether it's analysis, whether it's some level of design, support, database administration offers all of that. And it's not the first name or thing that pops up for you. You see cybersecurity, you see network engineering, you see data analysis, which those are all great career paths. But when it comes to who is going to be there forever, like I said before, the lifeblood of every business is its data, and we are the most critical aspect of that data life cycle, right? Because we're dealing with security, availability, access. All the other folks are lean on us to be able to do what they do when it comes to the data realm. So database administration is an excellent career path in terms of fulfillment, right? You get to do meaningful work. You get to do work that matters, work that counts, because you can see how what you do directly impacts success, directly impacts revenue, directly impacts the success of the business. So I'll say it's one of those excellent career paths that if you're looking for just long, stable, solid career paths, then this is one that I'll highly recommend. Before I move on, um, do we have any questions? I don't see any in the chat. Hope everyone is okay. You can hear me fine. I guess I'm asking this at the wrong time. Everyone is good. I just want to get some feedback from folks on the call, make sure that everybody's good. All right. I'll take it. We're all good because we're all still here. Um, Now, one of the things, and I'll take a few minutes to just talk about what we do, here at NSTAR Technologies. And if a career in database administration, a career in data is something that you aspire to, then we'll love to help you. I will, there's so many, our program has helped a lot of people aspiring database administrators, just go on and get success. We have, different programs really for that we're able to use and leverage when it comes to database administration. And if that's okay, I'll take a few minutes to talk about our database accelerator program. It's one of our programs that we built to basically work with people, 8, 10, 12 weeks that you can. Our goal with the program is really to help people transition into careers in information technology without having to break the bank, without having to deal with shenanigans that folks have to go through. There's a lot of misinformation around in terms of, people go for trainings, but no support, none of that. It's something that's important to us, and we've built our programs for to meet that exact need. We want to make sure that everybody going through our programs can and will be, successful afterwards. That's our goal. We want people to be able to take this and move on and go on and be successful. And that's what how we've tailored the program so that in 8 to 10 weeks you can go on and find a career as a database administrator. And our guarantee is, we'll work with you until you get a job. So even though there's a fixed duration for the program and you have access to the materials for life, we will keep working with you until you get a job. And we do our programs. It's a three-pronged. We have three pillars that drive our programs. Um, the first pillar is our tech mastery phase. So we spend time to make sure you understand the technology. Like I mentioned before, our area of focus is on Microsoft SQL Server. That's where we built. That's our area of specialty. That's our area of focus and proficiency. That's I trained that course. So we have our tech mastery phase, and our focus here is just understanding SQL Server. What exactly do you need to know? Now, we don't cover the length and breadth of Microsoft SQL. It's too broad to cover in 10 weeks. But we focus on what you are to expect on the job. Our objective is to ensure that you're able to transition from classroom to the workplace, and that transition is seamless, right? You're not trying to figure out, you're not going on the job and wondering what the heck am I doing. And then the next phase for us is our career launch framework. So everything from resume writing to how to position yourself online. How are you going to be found by people looking for your skill set? We're not just giving you samples, we are making sure you're prepped to navigate those conversations. A lot of people have the technical know-how, but they don't know how to go to market. They don't have any go-to-market strategy when it comes to how do I make sure I'm found by the right people? How am I positioned online to ensure that people that are looking to hire people with my skill set can find me? Or where do I go apply for jobs? It sounds simple, but a lot of people struggle because they're not equipped on how to handle that. And then beyond that, we go into our recruitment and hiring funnel where we focus on what exactly should you expect in an interview, right? We don't just talk about interview and mock interviews and what kind of questions to expect. We go in depth into, the interview process, what to expect with that, and then also even onboarding, right? When you're hired, next steps, how to navigate that whole conversation when that time comes. During in our solution program, we have our weekly live, mentoring sessions. You're going to have lifetime access to our learning platform. We have, ongoing support, unlimited support. You're going to be part of a community where you're going to get questions answered promptly. We spend plenty of time just reviewing different job search and interview scenarios. And of course, you're part of our community, which is priceless. So you're not going to be navigating this journey by yourself. And we have, like I mentioned before, we'll keep working with you until you get employed. We have a support to employ program, where we keep meeting with our students pretty much every week, except every week, let me put it that way, until they get a job. What we found is people have turned this into like an on-the-job support type deal where they're already working, but they still keep coming to these calls because of the benefits they get. And we're fine with that because our students get value from hearing the story of other people who are already working. So it's a neat community vibe that we have going. And that's how we're able to guarantee that we'll keep working with you till you get a job. So that's what comes with our program. We want to highlight that Enstar Technologies is an authorized training provider here in the state of Georgia. So it's not just NAMD trying to sell courses. No, we're actually a registered school with all of our authorizations. What that means is we have to maintain our curriculum and we have to maintain our results. Those are the criteria for a post-secondary education. You have to keep those on top. If not, you would lose your license to practice or teach that course. So we have accountability when it comes to our mode of operation. We're accountable to the government and we can lose our license. And so we take what we do very, seriously. You're going to get access to, again, everything we teach you is going to be based on real world scenarios from my experience, from the experience of all the other people we support, past students who are working, who come with questions, people in the support group. Those are the basis for the things you're going to be working on. Every project assignment is not just academic, it's practical. There are things, again, our goal is for you to go from, my goal is for you not to need me after class. That's our goal. And so it's important to us that we are giving you all of the good stuff. Um, and then we're working with you again. I've highlighted our interview assistants and all of that. So all the resources you need to be successful, we provide. All right. So you can go online. We have a ton of reviews online, and I'm not even going to go into things people say about us because I want to keep us under the hour. We didn't start on time, but I welcome anybody who is looking to make that jump into database administration or that career in data. If you want to, kind of talk to somebody, I invite you to, chat with us. You can see the link on your screen. Go ahead and scan the code and book a call. And someone can put the link in the chat as well. Rosie, if you can drop the link in the chat. So anyone who's interested in learning more about our program, the details of it, we've built it to make sure it's convenient and affordable for anybody who is ready to jump in. So if you have questions, please go ahead and book a call. If you're considering this career path, then go ahead and sign up right now, and we'll love to chat with you, answer your questions. And that's all I have. So I'll leave this up for a few more minutes before I end the call. Go ahead and scan the QR code or just copy out the website. It's enstartechnology.com/book a call. So easy to remember. Book a call, just the backward/book a call with our business website, or just scan the QR code and you should be fine. And we'll also be following up with a replay. So if you signed up, since all of you signed up, so you should get the replay for this, so you can go back and rewatch it as well. But that said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to answer your questions. We'd love to get you on board. So book a call with Rosie or Joanne. They're on the call, and we'll